From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined as always with our super producer, Dylan, the Tennessee pal Fagan. Most importantly, you are you. You are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. Cold War, still here, never left. Don't call it a comeback, right? Etc., etc. This is one that several listeners suggested to us a number of years ago, actually, when it was making the rounds on social media. Maybe the best way we get into it is to start with a question. What's the weirdest building we've been in as individuals?
The Shaken Crawdad over there on Buford Highway. Looks like a merry-go-round. Super odd.
I remember that one. I've never been in it, but
I haven't either, but I remark upon it every time I go past, and I'd like to one day.
The strangest building I've been in is the Omega Mart.
I love that. I'm so glad we were able to take that
raises
trip.
The bar for strange. Interdimensional fun. That was a good time. The Meow Wolf thing in Vegas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with our pal Paul Decant. And I remember being worried that might be a weird pitch because I didn't know what to expect either. Like, hey, let's go to this fake thing. I don't even want to spoil it, I think you nailed it. That is such a amazing building. I've seen a lot of weird historical stuff that I have to be honest about. It may have only seemed strange to me as an outsider. You know what I mean? Like the Washington Monument is really weird if you're not from the U.S.
A little culty looking. Obelisks have always struck me as a little, ominous.
What do we think of?
Obsessively penile.
Mm-hmm. What do we think of when we think of George Washington?
We do love a tumescent monument here in the United States.
Oh, yeah. Skyscrapers are going to look crazy in 10,000 years, the ones that are standing.
What were they thinking?
Oh, they worshipped penises.
A bit of a preoccupation there. Maybe they were compensating for something.
I think a better example, if I wasn't going weird, would be the facility at Buford Dam here in Georgia, because it's one of those places that is roped off to most individuals, but because of our association with Marshall Brain and how stuff works way back in the day, was able to actually go in there and look at the systems while they're functioning. So while they're generating electricity with the hydroelectric forces of the huge lake reservoir moving just down through this dam, and then you get power. But nobody's allowed in there to see that kind of stuff. So maybe that's one of the weirdest places I've been.
Ooh, yeah, I like that, Matt. It also reminds me, maybe not in just weirdness. We're happy to tell you weird buildings around the world later, folks. But in terms of scale and enormity, you've made me think of the Hoover Dam, right? Which the brain can't really get its mind around the first time you drive up and see it.
Yeah, we've remarked upon that. It's nuts. It's like being in a real life video game, which is such a kind of silly way of putting it, but it's sort of the only thing I could compare in terms of the, I'm even using video game terms, the draw distance of it all,
Well, yeah, and it's a great building just when we think about government-sponsored massive structures that have a very specific purpose and cost the equivalent of billions and billions, tens of billions of dollars today.
Yeah, you see where we're going with this. That's right, folks. We're going to get real weird with one for urban explorers, for, as odd as it may sound to say, Cold War fans, all the hits,
and
stuff.
Even Space Force fans.
And Space Force fans, good luck on your relocation coming up, folks.
Alabama, right?
Yeah,
that was the big announcement. What a letdown.
Roll Tide. Yeah. So we're going to pause for a word from our sponsors, and then we're going to learn the stuff they don't want you to know about the Cold War. Here are the facts. All right, let's cast our memories back to the days of the first Cold War. We got two superpowers, right? The USA and the USSR.
Yeah, and they had just won a huge victory over the bad guys. The ones that Norm Macdonald called the scrankly crankly guys.
What's that? I don't know this.
The scrankly crankly guys.
What made them scrankly and or crankly?
Just their vibe.
Okay, got it.
I think he was doing an impression of Hitler. Like, you remember him? He's the scrankly crankly guy.
Oh, yeah.
The more I learn about this guy, the less I like him. Yeah. We've been bringing that joke up on a couple different shows. Yeah, you're right. There's a world-changing conflict, World War II. And as you said, Matt, the USSR and the USA had teamed up to fight the Axis powers, but they were never really close. They were never bosom buddies. They were always frenemies with very different ideologies that were mutually exclusive. And so they already saw a new kind of war on the horizon. Even before World War II officially ended in 1945, these guys were figuring out how to screw each other over.
Well, yeah, and as we just talked about on a couple of episodes ago, the other forces that were not like the main allies that you hear about in history, like China, that were fighting against Japan on the Pacific front, and how everybody was working together to defeat these Axis powers, when, again, like just as we're taught in schools. But the big team up, and just to have all of that shatter because everybody is trying to watch the other one with the corner of their eyes, like, wait a second, are you trying something over there, buddy? Uh-oh. Maybe we got to do something.
Right. And then the other people were saying, hang on, why are they looking at us? Are they planning to do something? And so
we should plan to do something.
We should plan to get in front of this.
A little reactionary, maybe? I don't know. Yeah.
Very much so. I mean, that's where you get things like Operation Paperclip. That's where you get the Soviet equivalent of trying to extricate all the scientists they can, recover any and all Axis rocket science in particular. And these Axis powers are collapsing in Europe and East Asia. These two juggernauts are instantly going at it with their allies, what we would call the Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc back then. But for shorthand, we'll just say Russia and the USA. So Western sources, we've talked about this too before, they're going to tell you that the Cold War lasted between like 1947 all the way to the fall of the USSR in 1991. However, a lot of other people will tell you, no, the Cold War began as World War II was dying down. And if you go to sources that are not your Western textbook, some of them will tell you the Cold War never ended.
Yeah, the titles of some of the countries changed a little bit. The Gulfs became, America instead of Mexico. No, I'm just joking. but it's just history continued on, and some of the same human beings continued to live, and some of those same human beings had similar aspirations that they did when countries were named other things.
And visited Alaska recently. Some of those guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
I made some speeches. You're absolutely right. The names change, but the game's the same, right? Rose by any other name is still a rose. War, whatever, won't keep it. Anyway, so it was apparent from the jump to all the political class, the academics, the boffins, the eggheads, the public, that both sides, at least the powers, the decision makers of both sides, wanted to establish global supremacy. And when they were trying to rationalize, beat me here, Dylan, please. When they were trying to rationalize the evil
redacted
they were doing, they said, look, if we don't break a few eggs, the other guys are going to take over the world. And that's going to be way worse than what we're doing, by testing these gases on civilians and so on.
And that's sort of what kicked off the arms race. So both groups searched for any possible leg up on the other, regardless of how minor it might be. The USSR and the United States jumped into all kinds of weird reindeer games, as you would say, Ben, shenanigans, dare we say. Some of them sound a little bit odd, or, potentially downright evil, even by today's standards. And, to be fair, some of them actually continue. So we've got private defense contractors, politicians, and department heads of government all agreeing on one thing. these buzz phrases like national defense or the red threat were key in helping Uncle Sam open that wallet on up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need a shield.
Well, yeah, we need a shield. We have no per diem. There's no budget limit on this stuff for real, as long as you say the right words in the right rooms. And this sounds really paranoid today. We do have to admit a lot of progress, scientific and social, was lost due to this mistrust. But everyone looking back can agree the assessments of these two world powers were correct. And the secret that a lot of your textbooks will tell you is some of those forces we just described actively wanted a Cold War because it's great for business. It unifies domestic support. It is so easy to get reelected if you can make the public feel you're fighting a common threat.
But it's also like way more convenient than a hot war. You know, it's more sustainable in terms of like, it gives you the rationale that's needed, but you don't have people dying and you don't have to like deploy troops to the front lines.
Right. Deploying troops being one of the big differences there. It's a quieter war.
Yes. Quickly, let's remember August 6th and 9th, 1945 is when Hiroshima and Nagasaki are both bombed with the first show of force with a nuclear weapon or an atomic weapon. It's only 2 years later that the USSR tests their first nuclear bomb or atomic bomb. So just remember like that part is probably the most important. These two superpowers have both demonstrated this ability to cause mass casualties almost instantaneously if the right bomb gets dropped in the right place. And so just wielding that power alone creates this common threat, common enemy thing for everybody, right?
Yeah, this is world-ending technology with, at that point, no real viable deterrent once something's in the air. And, you know, now that you're bringing that up, one of the weird doesn't fit, but one of the most singular series of buildings I've ever visited is the Hiroshima site. You know, that is a scale that is in its own way equally incomprehensible, similar to the Hoover Dam in some respects. But you absolutely nailed it, because then later we see Sputnik, which is real egg on the face for the U.S., and there's a space race happening, right? And all the technology involved there. This means that technological research, despite the tensions that won't let people work together, the research is at a fever pitch, and it's so well funded. This is the time to go to the Department of Defense and Shark Tank them. Say like, hey, I got a wacky idea. Have you guys heard of psychic powers? And they're like, you know what? It's weird that you made it this far into the building, but hit us.
We got to look at it. They might be doing it too.
They might be doing it too.
And I don't mean to be reductive about the space race stuff, but doesn't it feel a little bit, guys, like most of that is about, hey, they might put nukes up there.
100%.
Sure.
Okay.
Or be able to command and control that part of that sphere, literal sphere of orbit, for surveillance. And maybe they don't even need a nuke, right? Maybe they can work with some of that technology that was still in play at the time. The idea of just dropping rods from God onto things. Yeah.
But in the mid 50s, I suppose it would be, and Nixon era, that's around the time when we're thinking, how do we prevent missiles, like nukes from hitting us, right? That's when that concept is like just a little seed. Hey, I think we could probably stop nukes. We just got to build something that could stop the nukes. Well, how do we do that? And that's when that idea, it becomes alive. And then I imagine people at the time with the seemingly endless possibilities that space represented, like that being another way. Hey, there's got to be a way to stop the nukes from up there.
And we combine it with the shiny new thing that is space exploration. And we see stuff like seize the high ground. And we see, a high rate of attrition for ideas. Lots of extremely weird, at times useless stuff, and some very brilliant ideas, like how to get to space and stay there without dying for a second, for a little while. But a lot of this, we have to realize, comes from this almost like a global poker game these world leaders were playing, because they both attempted to send misleading signals about what they were doing and how successful or unsuccessful it actually was. Because if you can, let's say we're Russia, and you can appear to build an amazing new technology, right? But it's impossible to build it. But Noel, you're going to be Russian in this one, if that's right.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Happy
Awesome.
to be.
Okay. All right. Now, so you figure out, you get with your guys and you say, we don't have to actually build this. We just have to make the other side think we're doing it, and then we'll bleed them dry financially.
Because they got to build one now.
Right, because they don't want a defense gap.
It's the old "what's he building in there" trick, right?
Mhm.
Tom Waits
Yeah.
would be proud.
Yes, I suppose he would.
We've mentioned that recently. We were talking about AI, right? But this concept that I think this goes further and deeper into the present than we would like to believe.
100%.
I genuinely think that I have read things about new tech and in the science sphere that are these kinds of red herring developments that are going on in countries that are not just the United States and Russia or China, but other countries that are closely allied that will put out something and say, oh, fusion technology is now at this point where it's in this incredible spot. You guys, we're doing it. We've done it. And then somebody else is going to have to start pumping those billions in.
Right.
Oh.
And then you have to, in times of peace, even then your next solution is, we have to get someone there in person, not boots on the ground, but we got to get some shoes in the ground so someone can see if this fusion thing is malarkey, right? Is this real AI or is this a mechanical Turk? Things of that nature.
Sorry, it's classified.
No, it's fine. I'm a tourist. I apologize. I thought this was the restroom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, which did happen during the Cold War. One of the weirdest results of this, what we're very excited to explore with you tonight, folks, is something called the Stanley R. Mickelson Safeguard Complex. Not the sexiest name, but very expensive. And according to the lore, it cost around $6 billion to build. And as you said, Matt, 1960s, 1970s money. The story says it was only in operation for one day and then became the center for something else entirely. Is any of this true? If so, how much? Maybe most disturbingly, what could it be used for today? I don't think any of us have visited this building just yet, have we?
Not I.
We have not.
Okay.
But we're going to get into it. We have watched many a video from Mr. Robert Branting, site supervisor of the Ronald Reagan Minuteman missile site, whom we left a message with. We phoned the Minuteman site and left a message and said thank you for your videos. So hopefully, if you got that message, you're hearing this now, Rob.
And thank you. We've also seen, extensive photographs. And you know what? How about this? Let's just pause for a word from our sponsor, and then let's continue. Here's where it gets crazy. We don't always get to say this. The social media conspiracy story that was all over TikTok and Instagram in 2021 is sort of true. It contains true elements.
That's right. The conspiratorial allegations surrounding the Mickelson Safeguard recently spread on TikTok. And from there, the claims got spread. It's like the way I see TikTok basically reposted on Instagram. I mean, it kind of gets picked up. And it gets weirder and weirder as it starts to proliferate. So let's just start with what we know to be true, right?
Yeah. If you see images without context of this site, specifically of one part of the site, because it has the site itself has multiple sections and multiple large concrete structures. When you're looking at some of the imagery that will appear on social media, the one that's most striking looks like a dang pyramid.
Yeah, the MSR, the Missile Site Radar Complex, it's gigantic, and it looks like a pyramid walked into a barbershop and said, just f my shit up. Yeah.
The pyramid walked into a barber shop.
Well, they said take the top off.
Yeah, they took the top off and flattened it. They pushed it down, just F my ass up, as the subreddit goes. And
but it's also got those little the little circular things on the front that are actually part. Well, I will get into what that actually is, but the actual radar systems that are within that thing are facing in 4 different directions. So it looks like symbols, like giant symbols of some sort on there.
And it makes you, if you're an American, it makes you maybe take out a dollar bill if you have one handy and look at the artwork and go, oh man. Also,
the top's off of this.
Yeah. Also, there's a site from the angle, it can look like a giant eye from a Cyclops of old or some Lovecraftian creature.
Wait, isn't that's the symbol that's on the dollar, right? Isn't that the all-seeing eye, like where there's a disconnect between the top of the pyramid and the base, sort of floating
on the dollar, and on this boy, there are 4 quote unquote eye things on the larger mass of the pyramid.
I'm just saying this is a symbol. This kind of iconography is something we've seen before.
Yeah, and if you're already primed to think in those terms, right, we could obviously say, how close can a resemblance become before we can no longer accept coincidence or technological necessity, which is the real argument for the pyramid, but also the stacks for the underground power plant. They look like little monoliths. It looks very weirdly Egyptian themed in its heyday for some reason. It's like, I was thinking about this while we were doing research for this when we talked briefly about Stargate in a recent listener mail. It's like future ancient Egypt. What's going on in there?
North Dakota.
Finally, in Tacoma, North Dakota, which also, if I were a Canadian leader at that time, I would be massively worried and irritated because Tacoma is pretty close to Canada.
Yeah, but that's the point, right? We'll get into it, but you got to be as close to the North Pole as possible.
Right. Yeah, to get your best coverage. And this thing is, as we're going with, as you said, Noel, true stuff. This thing is, or was for a short time, Uncle Sam's first operational, what we call ABM defense system, anti-ballistic system. It's part of a bigger thing called the Safeguard program. Think of that as a clear predecessor to stuff like Israel's Iron Dome or the proposed Star Wars program under the later administration. The street name for this guy isn't Mickelson, by the way. It's Nixon's Pyramid.
Yeah.
And you'll hear it mentioned all the time. The idea is not that these guys are going to, missiles from this site will obliterate Russia or Chinese forces half a world away. It's the idea that if something gets shot toward the U.S., these little things, which we'll talk about, are going to be fast enough to intercept an intercontinental ballistic missile, blow it up in the sky, possibly with a thermonuclear explosion, and then everything's great.
Yeah. Oh yeah, these are like the Nikes, right? The Nike, like they're not Nike shoes, but Nike missiles, like the Zeus, the Ajax, the X. These are the things that are supposed to go up and take out either bombers or missiles that are coming our way. The craziest part, I think this is what we're getting to. The craziest part is in the 1950s, all the way up to the mid 1970s. How do you target a missile that's flying really, really, really fast?
Excess of 400 miles an hour, for instance. Yeah.
So how do you target that with that technology of the day?
You need to build a better radar. You need to build what we call phased array.
Yes.
And this is what the big tent or big pyramid item, right, of Mickelson or Nixon's pyramids. It was also, we got to mention this before we move into it. This was only the first of 12 planned sites.
Yes.
And it was meant to specifically, Mickelson was meant to protect the missile airfields for the Minutemen missiles at Grand Forks Air Base. So it's like, hey, you want some missiles on the side with your order of missiles?
Well, yeah,
Mickelsen.
because the Minutemen were the response to being attacked, right? So we have to protect our response, which is a really interesting concept. And the way we're going to protect our response is by having our own nukes that are prepared to go up and off in the sky, because theoretically, that's the only way we can actually knock the bombers and missiles out, because you need to get close enough and then detonate a nuke in the air above your own property. And,
Population, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And weather patterns be damned. Also, so everybody in the room went, yay, Kalu Kalay, huzzah, rah, rah.
Missile defense shield, missile defense shield.
We made up a little chant at the end. We did the wave across the boardroom.
And Northrop Grumman and all the companies said, oh my God, guys, we're going to make so much money.
The Lockheed guys were loving it. They party crazy. Sadly, that was not the case. A lot of people were pissed about this and have been for decades. Even I think we've all had those conversations with frustrated experts and professors who are like, yes, again, General, we all agree this would be a cool idea. Yes, missiles are cool. I get it. They're cool.
Yeah.
So
you can't kind of mandate something into existence.
Yeah, like however, not all cool things are real things. So that's what they were talking about. The technology wasn't where it needed to be.
Agreed. It's tough to fault some of the top military thinkers at the time, because you can imagine them racking their brains, getting the top scientific experts around and saying, well, how could we actually do this? How could we achieve defense of this kind of technology that we're developing and that we know they're developing? And this was, at least at the time, the best option, or as close to the best option as you can get. It just was freaking expensive. It reminds me, guys, of that old Atari game, Missile Command. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Do you remember
sort
that?
of like a battleship situation? Like, isn't it? It's very basic, right? Aren't you sort of like deflecting missiles? Or
you're basically one of these things. You're like this site, right? You play that site, and then you can shoot missiles up into the air that explode with what looks like a small nuclear explosion. Starts at the center, expands out, and you have to stop all the missiles from coming in. It feels very similar to that. That's a 1980 game.
It's a defense game, basically.
It is.
Right? Yeah.
It's a missile defense game, which is literally what we're talking about here. I just wanted to get this in. I find it so interesting that you can play this 1980 arcade game there's one place that I found it. You can play it for free right now, if you want to, on the AARP website. I'm not kidding.
I believe you.
The website of the American Association of Retired Persons. It's games.aarp.org/games/Atari Missile Command. And you can play it right now.
I think I might have it on. I've got it on an emulator. I was just gifted a Switch 2, so doesn't Switch have Atari games on it as well?
I think there might be
maybe
something.
If not, I'll go on the emulator.
It looks like you can play it literally through the browser. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, just go to the AARP website, man. There's people who have nostalgia for the concept of shooting missiles out of the sky with nukes. That's all.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And good on you, AARP. And no further comment about emulators, I think. So this is the issue, and you put it so beautifully. People are saying, yes, this is expensive. Yes, this is imperfect. No, we have no other options. And then someone says, well, what about global peace? And they're like, get out. Get him out.
What?
Get him out. Get him out of here. Anyway, as we were saying, so Congress, to their credit, they have some serious misgivings about this. Not everybody is happy. This is a very controversial thing, right? And journalists and the public are clocking onto this. We have to remember at this time, there's also a very strong anti-nuclear power in general movement. They don't love it either. Still, public fear and the potential for contractor profit won the day. And the site gets approved out there in North Dakota in 1969. They start building it in 1970. The estimates for how much it ran to build usually vary in contemporary reporting between $5.7 and $5.8 billion in 1960, 1970 money. So it was way more than that in real terms.
Well, yeah, and just so you know, that's around $29.3 billion in 2021 dollars.
Mm-hmm. And then in 2025 dollars, we actually have to wait for the data to come in to figure out how screwed up the current economy is. But this is, I guess at first this seems like good news, right? As we're picking up these breadcrumbs and connecting this red string, the social media conspiracy lore isn't that far off. And the thing is real. It is built. It cost around as much money as it was alleged to have cost, and it was completed.
It opened on October the 1st of 1975, and the very next day, October 2nd, 1975, Congress members in the House successfully voted to shut it down.
Yeah.
That's weird.
But that doesn't mean it shut down that day when Congress voted to shut it down. It means funding is gone. So
that's right.
It's gotta roll down. It took a couple months at least.
What an odd thing to do, though. I mean, after all that money, after all that labor that goes into a facility like that, like, what's going on?
Well, keep in mind, the cost of labor and R&D does not get refunded. So the money is gone.
Right.
The money has left the barn. It's a weird bait and switch, right? And it gets a little muddy when we think about the reasons. And already, this is just the true information. According to the facts as they stand, it does seem Mickelson Safeguard was either an offensive waste of time and resources or just maybe something else. And so if you don't dive any deeper, you see those conspiratorial allegations on your favorite social media, you may say, hey, these have some sand to them. But if there was or is a conspiracy, to what end? Cui bono? Who benefits? That's where we get to the really weird stuff.
Well, one person, group of people, organization that is currently benefiting from this site is the United States Space Force. Why? Well, let's get into it. So the pyramid structure, if you're looking at images of this thing online, and we hope you are, the pyramid structure and then the other little Spartan missile silos that you can also see in a lot of the images, that stuff is what we're talking about, essentially is what got shut down and what was no longer in operation. There was still testing going on at that pyramid site. Again, at least according to Rob Branting over there at the Ronald Reagan Minuteman missile site, which is the Oscar Zero missile alert facility and the November 33 launch facility. Really interesting names for stuff out there in North Dakota and that whole area with missiles. That is one site that was doing its thing. There's another thing called the PAR, or the Perimeter Acquisition Radar. It's another strange concrete looking building. It's got this checkerboardy looking thing on one side of it that's kind of tilted, a little bit angled towards the sky. It's got a little radar thing on top of it, some sort, one of those little golf ball things. Mm-hmm. This structure is very interesting. It is specifically looking to see what was coming in and out of the atmosphere. It could, for the first time, begin to characterize the type of things that are coming in and out of the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. So with some of the older radar, some of the different radar, even the one that the pyramid structure, it didn't have a lot of accuracy in what it's seeing. It could just detect, oh, there's stuff coming from the North Pole vicinity, or, oh, there's stuff coming from the southwest out of the sky. This thing, this PAR, could give you a better idea of and tracking ability for those attacks. So, as it was more strategically important, this thing kept on operating. It was handed over to the Air Force in 1977, and then in 2021, the U.S. Space Force took over, and they're the ones who still operate this thing today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you don't want to throw things away if parts of it work. You want to do salvage. And that ties back to what we were saying earlier, the conspiratorial allegations on social media, that maybe there is some other purpose than what was originally sold to the public and indeed to Congress. And that's where we get to that question again. If there was or is a conspiracy, who benefits? Cui bono, right? And that's what leads us to the weirder stuff that caught fire on social media around 2021 and continuing on today. Maybe we get more into the details of that after a word from our sponsors. Good folks at Lockheed, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman. Boeing, are we still with Boeing?
Yeah,
Sure.
baby.
Yeah, all the hits.
And we've returned. All right, so going back to some points we mentioned earlier, the story is told in these short TikTok clips is unfortunately the most diplomatic way we can say it is a highly abridged version of the truth. Congress did vote to shut down Mickelson literally the day after it opened, like you were saying, Noel, but the base remained in operation until February 10th, 1976. Contrary to the popular implications, something this large with this many moving parts can't be flicked off at a switch. You can't just walk into what it's kind of like our conversation about MRIs, right? Mm-hmm. There's not a kill switch for Mickelson.
No, I'm just really surprised that none of this crossed my social media radar. It just seems like the algorithm would have fed it to me if it was making the rounds, given some of the stuff that we look at. Maybe you guys saw it, but I don't know if you guys are on Instagram as much as I am. But for around a year, according to the Palm Beach Post, this site was home to almost 2,000 military and civilians. Like living in any large community, a base, there was a subdivision, which included a commissary, a chapel, and all that kind of stuff. Oh, and also a gas station and, you know, the kinds of things any small town or village would need.
A town, yeah. Like, this is going to be familiar to anybody who's lived on a large military base in the past, but I spent some time in Fort Campbell, and it was a city all its own. It was big, you know. They had a water tower, which to me at that time was like the mark of authenticity for a city.
Like, oh, you're a town for sure.
Oh, you're a town for sure because you guys have the tower,
yeah.
Right?
I know Springfield.
Exactly, right. I know Cumming, Georgia.
Yeah.
So this gets really weird because despite the fact that people agreed the base was an imperfect answer, it was still better than any of the alternatives aside from world peace. But it turns out it had a secondary value, and it's one that the public was not super aware of because it'd be very unpopular to explain to them. This was not just a off-the-cuff attempt at destroying enemy ICBMs. This had an equal value as a bargaining chip in negotiation with the Soviets. And it actually kind of worked. Russians watched this and they were amazed. They were impressed.
Yeah. This was cutting edge technology at the time. And the Americans actually spent that money and built this thing. And they've got satellites, just like we've got satellites looking down from above. But yeah, seeing... guys, what is that? What is that pyramid thing? We've got some intel that they're building something out here. Those are definitely missile sites, but what is that pyramid thing?
What's going on? Yeah. And then they also, they did have, for anybody who's seen the show The Americans, there were sleeper agents, right? Who could maybe take a road trip to parts of North Dakota. Unproven, but they did have pretty efficient ways of gleaning intelligence. And they also did the math, right? Because the U.S. was happy to announce this math to journalists. So they did the math and they said, okay, even if it's going to get cheaper every time they build another iteration of this dirty dozen, if we try to build something like this, if we try to build 12 of these, that's going to be a phenomenally tall milkshake. That's possibly a bank-breaking endeavor. So we got to come negotiate with our frenemies.
Yeah. It makes so much sense. You think about satellite technology today, and you guys remember some of these stories that came out about specifically places in China where cities, massive entire cities were being built, and then nobody was using them, or there were so few human beings in these large metropolitan areas, didn't make any sense. The way you could tell that now is with the sophisticated satellite technology. You can tell there's no cars going down any of these major highways that have been built. Right. Oh, wait, what is happening? Back then, specifically in like 1975 or whenever it was, you could still tell that it was an operating base, right? With the images coming back. There are human beings going back and forth from, let's say, a barracks to the actual facility. But if you didn't have people doing that, you could probably, at least in some way, say this isn't worth our time. That this is like for show.
Right. This is performance, pomp and circumstance. But just as we're describing, every time a satellite passes over the correct path, they're instantly playing the game that a lot of people play as kids, where you look at the two seemingly identical images, and then there are 10 things different, and you have to try to find the 10 things, like, oh, he's wearing a red hat this time, or oh, the blah, blah, blah. That's what's happening with satellite imagery around this time on the Soviet side, because they're looking at this and they're saying, oh, why are these vehicles in different places? Who's moving where, and how can we figure out when they're moving? So that's how they know it's active.
Yeah. Intelligence is so vast when it comes to the collection, right?
Yeah, it's also hilarious when it comes to the fact that we're using the word intelligence. You know what I mean? Like
information technology, information gathering, and weaponization.
It reminds me of one of my favorite SNL sketches, just for the voice, with Adam Driver at Career Day, where he's like, incubation technology was still in its infancy. I was placed in an iron lung until I was ripe enough to breathe.
I remember this one. Is that the one where he stabs a crow?
Yes. H.R. Pickens. Who is that? Exactly. Anyway, the idea here, right, of separating through the noise, right? Is this a fake thing? Like when the British said, oh, eating carrots just turns out to make you really good at seeing in the dark. Pay no attention to those rumors about radar, right? Like, is this a story they're selling us? They were convinced it was true. And so they came together, and both countries eventually said, all right, you guys, I can't wait to hear what we say about this. They said, all right, you guys, all right. Yanks, Ivans, we each get one anti-missile site each.
Yeah, just one.
Just one, because you guys already built one.
We'll build one too. It's cool.
That's it. We're going to the next level of the game. Again, that's officially. I don't know. What do you guys think when you hear about those kinds of agreements? Like, oh, we're going to step down the nukes.
I don't know, man. I don't know if anybody's going to willingly step down anything.
Well, the site still has the potential for Minuteman missiles, and it's still partly operated by Space Force, and they're looking at stuff in orbit.
Right.
It just makes there's a lot of trust that would go into one side saying, okay, we trust that you're not going to do anything else.
We'll be the bigger government. We've been going to big government therapy.
Yeah.
And we're really working on ourselves, and we hope you guys also work on lowering the amount of nukes you have.
Oh, damn it. Wouldn't it be great if that were true, though? If we could all just go to big government therapy together.
Honestly, like all the voters in the US.
Role playing, probably.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I've thought for years, and I have no moral compunction about cannabis. Do as thou wilt. It's not for me, but still, being a non-subscriber to it, I suspect that a lot of international conflict would be easier to solve if some of the world leaders and despots just had a smoke sesh together.
Dude.
Like if they just hung out, talked about common interests, shared some of their culture's favorite snacks.
Just do some bong rips. Yeah, a little microdosing. I'm fully on board with this.
Let's freaking do it, guys. We can make this happen. It's a global shroom session at a cabin somewhere where everybody's just hanging out.
Shroom and cannabis. You got to give people choices.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Just throw up some fractals on the projector.
Yeah.
Magic Eye. Bring back Magic Eye. You know what I mean?
Could never make those work.
Just hang out with an oak tree for a couple hours.
Talk to some animals. Check out our episodes on that. Look, what we're saying is we don't have all the answers, folks, but we do have the best ones. So there we go. So Congress then did something really weird after they reached this official agreement with Russia. They went back and they said, look, what we've done, despite building this behemoth and then closing it almost immediately, what we've done is actually saved the nation billions, possibly trillions of dollars, because now we don't have to build the other 11 ones that we were pretending we were going to build. Which is true, but it's sneaky true. It's parkour true. It's conveniently true. And then they said, they had more stuff.
Well,
they had a lot of statements that were like, oh, baby, come on, you know.
Yeah. Well, because they were secretly working on Cheyenne Mountain over in Colorado. Right. They're working on all these other sites that do various things for continuity of government and for protecting, the movers and shakers, no matter where the nukes fall.
Just not specifically that kind of thing that Mickelson was.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like someone going to court and saying, Your Honor, I'm never going to drive a Volkswagen drunk again. And then, fast forward 6 months, they're in the same court with the same judge. And they say, Your Honor, in my defense, that was a BMW.
Your Honor, in my missile defense. Oh, wait, that's
perfect.
Mickelson.
Yeah. So Congress, to the public and to any factions of politics and defense, they said, okay, get this, though. Yeah, Mickelson was expensive, but a ton of the money we spent was basically just figuring out how to build the thing. If you think about it, I mean, come on, baby. If you think about it, half the money went into research and design, and we would have done that anyway. You know us. You know how we get down. So really, we invested in technology, and we didn't blow that much cheese on this thing when you think about it.
We didn't mean to hurt you, baby.
No. Babe, come on.
That is what the government is to us.
Slimy.
That is what they do.
Yeah.
I know. Gaslight Central.
So it was, yes, a lot of money, this safeguard base. It was only working for a short time. And logically, people still speculate on the motives behind constructing it, especially with so very many people arguing against its feasibility from the jump. Large parts of Mickelson are abandoned right now. And following up on our conversation about a visible or abandoned America, this is great if you're a fan of urban exploration. And I don't know about you guys, but I think it's astonishing how low the prices were when this stuff went to public auction.
Yeah, we were talking about this off air about how, been a little more eagle-eye, we might have been able to swoop in and get some deals here. So after most of its operational components were destroyed over the following decades, like you said, Ben, the MSR and the surrounding lands were sold at government auction for a total of $530,000. That seems very manageable.
Think about that price.
That's insane. That's insane.
That is the price of some of these big homes around where I live.
No question.
I know.
But not
right?
that big. Not that big.
Not that big. Not as big as you think.
No.
Unless you live in Vancouver or San Francisco, and then you're like, oh, is it a trench under a bridge?
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
What I mean?
That number is crazy.
It is. It's such a steep drop. The rate of depreciation. What is this? A boat? Anyway. They're purchased by the Spring Creek Hutterite colony originally, the big piece of it in this auction. They are a religious farming community.
That's amazing.
Are they humble farmers?
Well, you hope so. I love that connection. Yes.
Eventually, they will be spacefaring humble farmers.
Yeah.
You just wait.
But they're not. They're not home makeover missile base edition by any means. They farmed the land, but reportedly they just sort of allowed the structures to sit in the way of all ancient monuments and fall into slow decay. Look upon my works, ye mighty, and don't repair.
But there are missile silos in there. Have you guys seen some of those repurposed missile silos that end up flooding quite a bit just because nobody's paying attention to them?
Which is why they started filling them with sand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not helpful to have, repurposed missile silos that could actually have missiles. You probably don't want that. If you're a government selling things, we can repurpose them for other things. Just make sure missiles can't go in there anymore.
Right. That's the idea, seal it up. And also, the environmental problems of having created super deep wells that are full of contaminants and pollution. And now the water gets in there, but it doesn't stay in that well forever. There will come soft rains. Sorry, that story is still stuck in my head, you guys. But yeah, so we know the sales continue somewhere between 2017 and 2020. Parts of the site that, as you said, Noel, the humble farmers had purchased were sold to this local county outfit called the Cavalier County Job Development Authority.
Yeah?
Yeah. Totally legit, the CCJDA. And they say, when they purchased this, they said, look, we want to turn this into an historic visitation center. And then they got on the site and they walked around and they looked at how wrecked it was. And they said, okay, this might take longer than we thought. So we don't know how far they've gone yet. It's going to be extensive. We'll update if we hear more. But for now, the site is officially locked up tight and officially has 24-hour surveillance. And we cannot officially say anything about how one would or would not get in.
Yes, except for the parts that, remember, are probably patrolled by folks from the Space Force, which are using that one particular radar system and several surrounding buildings.
100%. But you can still, okay, if you want to get a tour, you want to be legit without any skullduggery or noctification, then you can go to one of the remote sprint launcher missile facilities. There were 4 of these. They were also sold at auction, and an absolute legend named Mickelson bought one of these in 2013. Forget this, folks. Sorry, I'm going game show. Less than $20,000 US. There are cars that are more expensive.
Wow. I don't even know what to say about that. Nice work.
Nice one, Mel.
It makes you wonder why Mel would do that, besides, the kind of the standard reasons why I would want one of these, in case stuff hits that old fan.
What would you do with it, Matt, if you were to win the auction?
I would make sure that there was a way for myself and people that I cared about that lived hopefully a very short drive away, if not within the facility, could get there in time if missiles were on the way. Because you'd be a little safer in one of those.
That's true.
Yeah. Especially if you got it up to snuff, up to code. And Mel is just a fascinating character, you guys. There's this great interview and firsthand account of taking a tour with Mel of his facility. You can read it on Unfamiliar Land. And as he explained to the author of Unfamiliar Land, he's working on this thing as a labor of love. It's a passion project. He's doing a lot of the work himself, and he had not really thought that anybody would be interested in touring this piece of Cold War history. But as he's working out in the missile field that is his new yard, or as he's trying to clean up all this scrap and salvage, people kept stopping by and saying, oh, hey, what's going on, man? What are you up to? So he put together a tour that sounds really cool. If you're fans of this kind of history, you get a video, not as propagandistic as the video you have to watch, like going into North Korea or something, but it's all about the history of Safeguard and the history of the site, history of things like the Sprint missile test. And then he walks you through the guard room, which is now a bedroom, the control bunker. We do have to stress, and Mel stresses, that as far as we know, the missile field does not contain working missiles, but he hasn't yet scrounged up the capital he would need to unseal them and see what's inside. They're bolted down. You look on it, he's restored the tops, like the end caps of these things, but that's way easier than figuring out how to crack it open, especially if you don't know the best way to close it afterwards.
Yeah, I'm looking at a site called coldwartourist.com.
Oh yeah, I love them. Yeah.
They've got some of the best imagery of the site in there, including inside, I guess this is the pyramid. Just looking at, again, where water is seeped in and rusted, a bunch of stuff, where it just looks like a dangerous place to be. And then imagining the other silos around the site looking probably similar, if not worse, because this is inside a pyramid, right? And it looks like it's haggard as all heck. And then if you imagine going down into the ground quite a bit, what you might not like what you find down there.
No, it's pretty gnarly. You know, it looks like the backdrop of a Rammstein or Nine Inch Nails music video, to be quite honest.
Or Silent Hill.
Or Silent Hill, very much so.
Industrially ravaged. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something dystopian, post-apocalyptic. You can also go to the website srmsc.org for more history on the site. That's pretty in-depth. That's got some pictures of the heyday. It's got a great explanation of the system components. It'd be cool to hang out with Mel. Mel, if you're listening, thank you for making this resource available to the public. Good luck on your restoration project. Here's what we found for all the research we did. Mel and the other locals seem to have lots of stories about the site. You know, fun anecdotes, some tales of shadowy government activity like the FBI tracking down people who were trying to take photographs, stuff like that. But no one has created serious and sourced allegations of Mickelsen as a site for either secret quasi-government activity or, unfortunately, Illuminati activity. So that's why when you see the TikTok videos and someone is giving you things that start out true about the history of this site, and then they say, many people say it's a stronghold for the Illuminati. That's the point where you have to ask yourself, which people specifically? It's a bummer of a point, but it's important.
For sure.
Yeah. I don't know. It might be of interest to somebody who would build a weird pyramid structure on an island that,
might
would go to.
Might be of interest to someone who would build weird structures on the moon, you know?
Which looks like China's going to beat us to the moon, guys. I don't know if you saw the reports on that.
I don't know. It looks like China's beating us to a lot of stuff.
It looks like we're not doing so great here with the whole missile defense.
Have you seen their drone shows? It's insane.
Yeah. Dangerous theater. Right.
On that same site, Ben, I was looking at the PAR complex, that perimeter acquisition radar thing.
Yeah.
That Rob Branting was talking about so much. On here, it says it can track, back in the day when it was created, it can track multiple targets the size of a basketball at a range of 2,000 miles. And it's pointed north towards the North Pole, which means it's looking for anything that's coming our way, you know, over that pole, around that pole from Russia. And from that information, you can probably understand why Space Force is still so interested in keeping this thing running.
Sure. Especially also rogue armament that may have survived in former Soviet satellite states. And they've updated this. And we also have to mention that the reason it's important to track multiple things at such a small level of size is because a common strategy is to not launch just your one explosive boy, but to also launch decoys to lessen the chance that you'll be, because you know already you can't get everything in the sky just yet. This is the story of the Mickelson Safeguard Complex. I think we were all fascinated to learn not only can you buy a piece of Cold War history, but you can get it for a song, unless there's something they don't want you to know. One positive note about weird things, weird songs. I was showing this to Dylan earlier. I can't remember. I think I may have showed you, Matt. My crow whistle. I got a crow whistle. Helps you talk to crows.
Yes. Can
allegedly
we hear it?
Of course.
No, Jesus.
Oh, it's like a little kazoo, but
It's
nobody.
like a little kazoo, but the crows seem to like it.
I can hear it. I can hear it.
It does. No, I literally. It's like it's a cacaw.
Not kidding. Did you order that online? Did you find it somewhere?
Oh, the cool story would be if a crow gave it to me, right?
Yes, of course.
If a raven was like, let's take this relationship to the next level.
Just hand it to you.
No, I found this on some forums and the projects continue.
Oh, dude, I want that so badly. They've been all around this area recently, and I don't know what species exactly. I don't know, some of them look much larger. So I want to know more. You're going to have to tell us more at some point, because once you discover what it can do, we need to know, man.
I'm sure you can find one on something like it on the internet so easily, right? If not, we have a new business.
Yes. Let's give one more shout out here to the State Historical Society of North Dakota and that Ronald Reagan Minuteman Missile State Historic Site. You can take tours of some of these places and get a glimpse, not of the specific, the pyramid and the place that we talked about today, but you can get a really close look into what these systems were designed to do and the history of them and similar systems of this missile defense shield concept and this idea of response to a nuclear attack. It's tremendously interesting, and there are a ton of super smart people that will just let you come through there for about $10 US if you're an adult.
Historians, man, and that $10 is no one's making money off of it. That's just to pay for cleaning. Also, big thanks to the journalist we mentioned earlier, Mark Charbonneau. Is the guy over at Unfamiliar Lands. We talked about his experience on the tour, but we didn't give him a shout out specifically. There's so many sites like this all around the U.S. We've got some here in Georgia, some abandoned sites. There is, of course, the Oak Ridge Historical Site. We know their official historian. We met him on a weird side gig to find a stolen head of a statue in Tennessee.
Woo!
Yeah, progress ongoing. We can't wait to hear about your strange adventures with abandoned places or places with strange uses. You can always send us an email. You can call us on the telephone. You can find us on the lines.
That's right. Find us at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook with our Facebook group, Here's Where It Gets Crazy, on X, FKA, Twitter, and on YouTube with video content galore for you to peruse and enjoy. On Instagram and TikTok, we're Conspiracy Stuff Show.
We have a phone number. It is 1-833-STDWYTK. It's a voicemail system. When you call in, you've got 3 minutes. Give yourself a cool nickname and let us know within the message if we can use your name and message on the air. And your voice. Your voice is part of that, because we can alter that if we absolutely have to, if you want to send something a little more sensitive. If you want to, send us words, sentences, paragraphs, attachments, everything. Why not instead send us an email? We are.
I don't know. I'm still getting the hang of it. The entities that read each piece of correspondence we receive. Be well aware yet unafraid. Sometimes the void writes back. Join us out here in the dark. Conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Can we please request everyone play this episode outside if you see a crow? And see if Ben attracts some crows.
Conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.